Salam and welcome to the CR Talk, your number one podcast that celebrates resilience, diversity, hope, and inspiration. This episode was my first recorded episode that is being released a little late for a reason. And it is special because while everyone starts their podcast journey hosting their friends, their families, who are okay with taking the mess of their first experience, I had the pleasure and the honor to host my CEO and one of the most resilient women I know who accepted to be my first company in this adventurous journey. Paedia Mixon shares her story with a shared talk in a journey full of giving, support, and encouragement. She has dedicated her life for helping refugees and Georgia thrive. 2024 is a milestone year for her as she turns 50, and her organization, New American Pathways, celebrates its 10th anniversary in the month of October, marking a significant growth under her leadership. Her inspiring and flexible leadership had guided the organization through many challenging times, such as COVID-19, political challenges in the United States. While leading New AP through difficult times, she was able to welcome thousands of refugees and help them to find another place to call home. She formed partnerships. She built great community of leaders, community supporters, and volunteers all come together to make the world a better place by creating a welcoming community. Today, in a talk full of joy, inspiration, and hope, Paedia leads us through her journey of resilience from childhood to motherhood and leadership. Please join me to welcome Paedia Mixon, the CEO of the New American Pathways. So welcome, Paedia, and thank you for coming.
Well, thank you for inviting me.
Of course. So before we start, I just want to check on you and know how you're doing.
Actually, I'm having a pretty good day. Yesterday, my husband and I took a trip to Huntsville. Um, his mother passed away 7 years ago, and his stepfather recently passed away, and they wanted their ashes together.
Wow.
So we went to their favorite place in Huntsville, and we spread the ashes, and it feels like a good ending. Like,
Yeah.
feel good. Like, finally we've been able to reunite them. And so today I'm feeling really good about that trip, and
Yeah. Feeling a little connection with them.
Yeah.
They're around there. Right. I have always had that question about like ashes because like it's not something we do in Islam.
Mm-hmm.
But here I have some friends who do the ashes of like their dear ones or their pets when they pass away, and they use it like to make necklace or any piece of art. So I think that's something meaningful here, and people use it as a way of connecting with their loved ones when they pass away.
Yeah.
What do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, it's like it didn't used to be very common in the United States, but the last 20 years, more and more people have started doing cremation, and my mother was cremated, my husband's mother was cremated with them, and I think the beautiful thing about it is instead of putting somebody in the ground, you can put them anywhere.
Yeah.
And somewhere that's meaningful to them.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that was, I don't know what I'm going to do, but but I think for her, she was a nature-loving person, and her husband went on many trips. So I think it was, right for them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I always believe that our people, when they pass away, they are still around. Their spirit is around, and especially when we have that connection, when we have that love and that deep relationship. I always feel that that's the situation. We're dealing with it in different ways, but I think it's something that's there somewhere.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right. So just to start, I want it to be a little like just. I know it has been a long day for you. You're coming obviously maybe from work, right?
Yeah.
So yes, we're going to do short game.
Okay.
And I'm having a picture here.
Okay.
Something,
All
and
right.
I just want you to guess what is that.
You want me to guess
Yeah.
what the picture is?
Yeah. You can ask me questions and then I'll say yes,
okay.
yes or no.
Okay. Is it a person? Is it a place? Okay. Is it something something you use every day?
Some people. In some places.
In some places. Okay. Is it a tool?
Yes. Yeah, tool for some people.
It's a tool for some people. Okay.
Yeah.
Is it electronic?
No.
No. Okay.
Maybe there are, I don't know, maybe it's a technology. Maybe there is an electronic version that I don't know about.
Is it, oh gosh, I play this game with my daughter, and is it used for cooking?
No.
Okay. Is it used for traveling?
Yes.
It's used for traveling, and it's not electronic.
Yeah.
So it's not a car. It's
You're getting closer.
Is it a bicycle?
Yes, ma'am.
It's a bicycle. I got it. Yeah.
So you said your day is beautiful, and so before also we dive deeper, I don't know if you know about what's going on in Sudan, but there is a war that has been happening like for over a year now, and I always feel like even if I'm happy, I'm enjoying my time. I remember my people there, and the war has so many reasons and has like historical backgrounds, cultural conflicts, and people fighting over the power. Why we're not going to speak about like the reasons and dive deep into that. I just wanted to bring that and just share that with you. And I call this part of the podcast "Love for Sudan."
Mm-hmm.
So just asking for any kind words from your heart, any prayers, call for action, anything that you can just say and show solidarity or support to the people of Sudan, because I know you're a big fighter of human rights. I know you care about people, and your work that you're doing is like it's all about helping other people. So just just any word that you feel like you want to tell those people about.
I mean, I know so many people from Sudan in my life, so many people that are here that are wonderful, amazing people.
Yeah.
That I'm so glad they're here for selfish reasons.
Yeah.
But I always think it's so sad that some of the best and brightest among us feel like they have to leave their country to be safe. And I have so much hope for Sudan, love for Sudan and all its people. Yeah, and I'm sorry that that's in your heart all the time.
It's all the time. Really.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah, and especially when it started. First, thank you for that. Really, this is what always comes from you. But especially when the war started, like we didn't sleep. We couldn't sleep. We couldn't just have a normal day because literally our families had to flee, either internally or externally, and some of them are actually right now in countries that are going through war themselves. So it's too much to handle, and we appreciate everyone who feels about other people and shows any kind of support. A word of kindness goes so far. So thank you for sharing that. Yeah, and going back to something very interesting about you, and the fact that when you were a child, you had to move like 20 times.
Yeah.
And you had to change schools like 13 times.
13 times. Yeah.
So I don't mean to torture you. I know that's a lot. But I just want to know, how did that how did that journey look like, and how did it shape you? Because I know it had a lot with your personality growing up, and it shaped who you are at some point. So just tell us about that journey. It's very, like, it's just very interesting to hear about a child that has to change schools 13 times. It's a lot.
Yeah. Well, my parents were very young, and they were they weren't settled, I guess. My mom had grown up a military child, so she had to move all the time growing up. And so, they would just pick up and move the drop of a hat. And my dad had a job where he was an electrical contractor, but he worked on military bases. Okay. So he would maybe wire housing or a commissary or something like that on a military base. And then he would go to the next military base. So although I moved a lot, I didn't go everywhere I went looked kind of the same because I would go to a military base in a small southern town. So I lived in Warner Robins, Georgia, where there's an Air Force base. I lived in Beaufort, South Carolina, where there's a Marine base. And I lived in Hinesville, Georgia, and just went from town to town, and we wouldn't stay very long. And sometimes just a few months. And so we just ended up moving a lot, and it put a strain on my parents' marriage. So they also sometimes split up and got back together, and that would be more moving. So my brother and I moved a lot, and we just got, kind of used to it. I mean, some things like I would go to one school and they were doing one thing, and then they'd already done it when I got to another school, and then another school they would be doing it again. So it interrupted learning. I was always having to make new friends. You always had to figure out a new place. I mean, it's not the same as having to figure out a new language or a totally different culture, but it was always like a new place. But on the other hand, I do have a lot of things I learned from moving from place to place. That's what my daughter all the time talks about. Like, I can't talk to strangers. I can't meet new people. And my brother and I used to literally walk around a neighborhood and look for bicycles and knock on the door and say, "Do you have any kids?" And so we just got really good at not worrying about, what people. I mean, the thing was, if everybody hated us, we could just wait and we would live somewhere else. So we just got used to not worrying too much and being really outgoing, and we became very close. So that part was good. But we moved a lot, and some years I changed schools 3 times in 1 year. So it was a lot. But I like the part of like being an outgoing person and feeling comfortable to know new people, knocking to people's doors. Like that's the highest level of comfort. And like I can see that in you now, like being a very social, very outgoing, very like welcoming person. So I think that was a good part, and I think also there is a lot of resilience there as a child to be able to adapt, to develop your personality, to be an outgoing and just to do those positive things, But as far as friendships, because that was my second question, like how did you like make friends? Kept your friends, or have you ever had like
continuous friends?
Well, my best friend now has been my friend for 20 plus years, and it's amazing to me. It's the longest friendship I've ever had because I tried sometimes to keep up with people, but it was hard. I mean, social media has been great because I connected with people from all different parts of my life, but in general, that it's a problem. It's a struggle. My brother and I talk about that sometimes. It's a struggle because you got used to thinking of people in a temporary way. And then when you want to, when you really care about somebody and you want to form a long friendship and they move away, you're just trained to forget and move on. And I think sometimes that's something I struggle with to this day. How to make friends. And it's not how to make friends, but how to keep up with relationships when everything is so temporary.
Yeah, that's a lot to handle. And yeah, as far as friendships, I can just relate. I didn't have to change schools. I like completed the elementary middle school, then the high school. That was in two schools. But when I go for the summer camp where we go and study Quran, I always at the end of the summer camp I feel like my heart is
Yeah.
like hurt and I cry a lot because I knew new people I don't wanna let go. So I had to learn how to do that. It wasn't too much, but when you told me like you had to change school 13 times, I couldn't imagine how that felt for you as a child.
Yeah.
But yeah, that made the Paedia we have today.
Well, I will say, I think I told you this when we talked before this podcast, that one of the things when I was younger is, it's terrifying to start a new school and to start it over and over again, and to walk into a new place where you don't know anyone and everyone else knows each other.
Yeah.
But everywhere I went, somebody was really kind. And, it meant a lot. And I remember every person who, was the first person to smile and say hi or introduce themselves in a new place. And I think that was one of the things that drew me to working with refugees and doing refugee resettlement as a career, because for me, it was moving from, Beaufort, South Carolina to Hinesville, Georgia. Everybody speaks the same language. They're not that different, but it was overwhelming for me, and that kindness meant a lot. And I thought, I want to be a part of giving that kindness to someone else.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
Because we really, my brother and I, depended on it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's also another good thing, to take away from that experience. And speaking of which, like the settlement, and I also remember you told me you started working in that field from the 90s, right?
Yeah.
So, why is so great? Well, that's like a long time, and today we're seeing like resettlement is being affected by everything around us. So, how was it different from now to be working in the resettlement or non-profit organizations that
in the 90s to now?
Yeah.
The biggest thing is politics is different. Like in the 90s, there was bipartisan support for the work that we did. So, you didn't really feel like you were going to go from one administration who wanted you to welcome a lot of people and the next one who didn't want to do it at all. You didn't feel like so much was going to change based on who was in charge.
Yeah.
And actually, I didn't, from just the side of doing the work, I didn't think about politics much at all. And that was really a privilege, actually, because now it's something you have to think about all the time.
Exactly.
So that was really different. I also think, the 90s in the United States, like September 11th hadn't happened. So you didn't, we just didn't see some of the kind of ugliness you sometimes see. Yeah. And then what I've seen is, every few years it's a different group of people, which it's great to be able to meet and work with people from so many different places, but sometimes that's kind of hard because you think about, oh my gosh, so many people are affected by war and by, so many people having to flee. Like, the perfect thing would be if we were put out of business,
Yeah.
But at the same time, back then I was working with people from Bosnia and Vietnam and Rwanda, and today it's Afghanistan, and I think Sudan has been a country that we've worked with different people from Sudan for a long time.
Yeah.
We've gotten to, I've gotten a chance to work with people from Syria, people from Somalia, just lots of different places.
Exactly.
And every group, as a group, brings a strength, and each individual brings a strength, and then people all have different challenges. So that's something that you're always learning.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. So, I know politics, as you said, is impacting our lives, like, and now it's something that we have to keep up with, and we have to, to be aware of how is it, like, how things are going and happening outside. And you mentioned things about you have to like deal with different administrations with different policies. So I want us to reflect back about when you, like, couple years ago, you had to make a lot of adjustments on your work as an agency, and it was overall, all the resettlement agencies, because of the new administration and the policies banning different countries, banning immigration and all that. So how did you thrive during that time as an organization?
Yeah. Well, I mean, the intention of this podcast is not to be political, but we have to mention that during the first Trump administration, on the very first day he was in office, he issued a executive order banning immigrants and refugees. And I remember when, that's how it started. That was day one. Wow,
Yeah,
this is going to be different. And I think one of the things about adapting and changing in an organization is there's feelings, and then there's, practical, like, what are we going to do? So you have to have the feelings and deal with the feelings. And it was, the refugees that we serve had those feelings. All the people that work there had those feelings. People were scared. People were upset. But also, we had to survive as an organization because we needed to be there for the community. And so I think one of the things I think about a lot is I'm really lucky because I work with the most resilient people on the face of the planet. I mean, that's true, right? Like, if you've survived, leaving your country, then going into like a refugee camp or living in an insecure situation, and then coming to the United States, and you're able to, start over and build a life and go work for a nonprofit and work with people all day long who have those same stresses, and you can do it and you thrive doing it, then you could walk through fire. I mean, so I think the key is to, like, draw on the strength of the people that you work with and the hundreds of different ways people have of dealing with problems, because at UAP, where we work, it's like, if there's a problem, you can go over it, you can go under it, you can go through it, you can go around it. And everybody has a lot of approaches. And we did a lot of talking about, okay, we can't do the things that we used to do, but what can we do? What do people need? Who might support us and why? And very early on, we just pivoted. And we all took strength in one another, and it worked. I mean, and a third of the refugee organizations in the United States closed their doors during that 4-year period, just gone. Wow. 1/3. But we took some cuts in the first year, but we survived. And, by the end, we were thriving. And I believe no matter what happens this year in the election, we will thrive. This
is amazing. And I didn't see that, but I saw how you as a leadership and just new AP has dealt with COVID when COVID hit. Oh yeah. And it wasn't that much like back then when you had to change policies, but also it was too much change, and people have to work from home, have to stop going, but you were so fast in just changing the setup from in person to virtual, and the operations and everything was so fast, and it was really fascinating, and that tells a lot of things about your leadership. I always like the way you handle things as a leader, and the fast decisions and all that. So just tell me a little more about your leadership style. Like, it's obvious, but what what are the things that made you being this flexible, this, creative, I can say also, because we are being creative in so many ways every day doing the work because of what's going on outside.
I don't know. I think I have been asked a lot of questions about what's your leadership style and how do you approach leadership and what's your philosophy of leadership, and I don't have a great answer for that, to be honest. I kind of think I think one asset that I have is that I can, for some reason, think very big picture and then zoom into small details and go back and forth. And that was really helpful during COVID. Yeah. Because it's a big problem and 1,000 small problems, And but the other thing is you have to have talented people around you. Absolutely. And I think that's a blessing. We have so many talented people. Absolutely. And people who feel like, yeah, we can do it. So we did. And I don't know, sometimes I step back and think, like, how did we do that? I mean, all of our clients were only coming into the office. That's how they dealt with us most of the time. Yeah. We have language barriers and a lot of people who didn't have technology, didn't know how to use technology. And suddenly people were losing their jobs, their kids were at home, people were new and they didn't know what to do, and we had to just sort of figure it out. And I think the first thing was sitting down with Annika, she's brilliant, and mapping out the big picture, and then just going in and day out and listening to people talk about, what about this, how do I do this, let's do this. And giving people enough flexibility. Yeah. Like, I always think you shouldn't, as a leader, come in and tell everybody what to do. Because it's just like the assumption that you know best and that you have all the best ideas. But I feel like the person closest to the client has the best ideas. That's right. But what they want from you is like a structure. Exactly. And so that was the goal, was to say, these are the guidelines. And then you figure out how that will work with you and your clients. And also try stuff. And if it doesn't work, nobody's going to punish you. We're going to try something else. Yeah. And I think that's just kind of how we did COVID. Like, when you think back on it, it seems like a miracle. But at the time, it was just like day by day. Exactly. Yeah. And I always wonder, for people who are working, like, it must have been so complicated to try and reach out to the families we serve. If with the language and the technology and teaching people how to use the computer and getting resources to people. How did you deal with that? Yeah, that's a lot, actually, and we have been dealing with that for a long time, even after COVID. Especially in different programming things, client may have different issues that they cannot be in person, so you have to train them on technology or do briefing, or sometimes people go to their houses to show them how to deal with specific applications like Zoom or different kind of technological applications. So it takes time, it takes consistency, and just showing them that you care, and they will be there, they will listen, and they will be open to get information that you're giving them. And that's a very important thing. And I think it's a cultural thing in UAP. People really care a lot and give from the heart. And this is one of the things I love about working in UAP and working in the refugee settlement. So with that, I want us to go back a little bit about the coming elections again. There are so many people different concerns. People, I know earlier people had to, if you have a family member who is back home, for example, and this happened, then they're in the middle of their process. So are there any procedures that are taken
because I know there are so many people who are concerned right now, and this will just, if there's anything we can tell them, just to.
I mean, what I would tell people is don't wait to do things. Like if you're waiting, if you're eligible for something, go ahead and apply. Don't wait because, I mean, we have no idea, and it's what's going to happen in November. But we do know from both of the presidential candidates some of the things that they're planning on doing.
Yeah.
And they're night and day. But former President Trump has said he's going to slow down immigration processing.
Yeah.
He's going to reinstate the travel ban. He's going to halt or reduce the refugee resettlement program. Like these are things that he has said.
Yeah.
And so, I do know that the current administration is trying to push things through as quickly as possible. So, I mean, I can't give immigration advice. I'm not qualified.
Yeah.
But I would, say if you're somebody who's been waiting to do something, in terms of going and applying for a relative or application, I wouldn't wait. I don't have, and also if you have a specific question, we have an immigration team who can provide real immigration advice.
Yeah.
And so, get advice from someone trustworthy.
Yeah.
And my heart goes out to anybody who gets, stuck in a process. Or I think the hardest thing in the world must be being separated from family.
Yeah,
so,
of course.
Yeah.
Of course. Yeah. But thank you for the advice. Thank you for, giving all this information. And I hope, as you said, the current administration can push as much as they can to get people, settled and get their families together before November.
Yeah.
Yeah. So with that, let's go a little bit to know Paedia, the person.
Oh, okay. All right.
So, do you consider, it's obvious, but I want to know, because sometimes you think you know people, but you discover that you don't really know a lot about them. So, do you consider yourself to be an introverted or extroverted person when you are by yourself? Away from the CEO work, away from all that.
Well, I'm mostly an extrovert, but in certain situations, I'm very shy. So I can get on a stage and I can talk to a million people, and I can sit with you and I can talk to you until you were like, get out of my house. But when I'm like at a party, I get really introverted. I have a hard time just walking up and like getting into conversations, and so if I'm in a room with a lot of people I don't know and I have to go around, and I get a little introverted in those situations.
Yeah. I can relate, because I was asked that question before and I was like, I don't know. Because at some situations I really feel like I'm so close to myself. And I don't like being super protective. But sometimes, most of the time, I'm like, talking to people and open and willing to know new people. And I just didn't have a quite specific answer for that, because I feel both.
Yeah.
And depending on situations. But as you said, there is a little of everything. Sometimes you just, based on the situation, based on who you're dealing with, maybe.
Yeah.
Right?
I think everybody's a little. I mean, there's very few people who just are absolutely one or the other.
Yeah.
I mean,
there
are some, but
right.
But in the office, our associate Carrie is an introvert, right?
Yeah.
And she's always saying to me, "Well, when we do this, because I'll say, let's do this thing, and we'll all, like." Trying to get a lot of people involved and to speak up, and she'll say, we have to plan for the introverts. We have to do something for the introverts. We have to remember the introverts.
Okay. So does she come with any ideas, like what we can do? Like,
she's always
give
saying,
me time.
Yeah. She says, if somebody's introverted, you should send all the information out ahead of time so they can prepare.
Yeah.
Because I can talk about anything, anywhere, anytime with no notes, and it doesn't bother me.
Yeah.
But she said, if you're introverted, you
You need some time.
You nearly want to be prepared when you walk into a room, and so it's really helpful. It's why it's always good to work with a lot of people that are not like you at all.
And of course,
Yeah.
of course, because you learn from them.
You learn from them.
They have a totally different, like, experiences, and
yeah,
absolutely they teach you a lot. You teach them. You guys, like, you just exchange the experiences and the knowledge about life.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I know you have been to so many places. And speaking of that, like, what is the one thing that made you feel welcome? What makes you feel welcome when you go to some place? Either it's then or now, or like it's overall.
I think when I'm in another country, if somebody walks up to me and speaks to me like they think I'm from there, then I feel really welcome. Like, oh, they think I have red hair. I look a certain way. So there's a lot of places where people are going to be like, she's not from here. But I remember I was in Kosovo, and we had a group. We were waiting for a table, and in a lot of places it was so obvious that I was an American. Like, people would just walk on the street and say, I love Bill Clinton. Like, they knew I was American everywhere I went. And then one day I was in a restaurant with a group, and someone came up to me and she started speaking Albanian. She just assumed that I was local, and I was like, oh, I feel welcome. So I think it's when, I love it when people reach out and they're friendly, but I think it's when somebody's informal. Yeah. When they're willing to, like, kind of include you in the, like, not polite side. Yeah. When somebody starts feeling like they can tease you or joke around with you, then I feel welcome. Yeah, right. Yeah, I think like, people just have different ways. Like, in Sudan, it's not how I feel, but people, to make you feel welcome, they provide food. Most of the time, they share food, and sharing food is one of the things that people use to express love, express welcoming, express appreciation. Yeah. And it's and I think it's an international thing. Oh. Like, in so many cultures. Yeah. When you go, especially when we started working with people from different backgrounds, I saw that in so many countries, and that's a good thing, because it is the way that me and my mom express our love to people. Like, I love feeding people, and like, when I just feed people, I feel like I just told a lot of things that without mentioning them, without having actually conversation. Yeah. So my grandmother was one of those people that always wanted to feed you and like not stop feeding you, and I do too. I like to bake, and it's and I'm from the South in the United States, and so when someone comes in your home, you immediately offer them something to drink, offer them some food, and I love baking for people, and I like the big holiday meals, and I love all that. And the gathering of that. And I always felt I always feel like somebody's put effort into making something for you. I mean, it's an honor. Yeah, of course. And I've gotten to taste so much food over there. Right? So much food. Yeah. Yeah, and get celebrated in so many languages. Yes. Right? Yes. Your birthday. Yeah. Like 1 week. Was it 1 week ago? Yeah. Last week. Yeah. Yeah. I got serenaded. Happy birthday in like 5 languages. It's lovely. That's beautiful. Yeah, actually, I wanted to speak about that a little bit, about your 50th anniversary and the 10th anniversary of New UP and New American Pathways. And those are two big things, Yeah. So how do you feel about that? Like, being like a big milestone here. Yes. Like, it's my 50th birthday was actually Sunday. Yeah. Right. And New AP will be 10 years old in October. I think it's weird because I'm not usually like a person who spends a lot of time, thinking about the past, or I'm not a person where like the date is like a big deal. I have family that call me on the anniversary of when my mother died, and I don't think about that. I think about her all the time, but I've never been one. But this year is different. I've been reflecting a lot about, all that's happened, uh, and then about thinking about life after 50 is a different kind of life, and
Right.
just thinking about. I mean, yeah, I think I've felt a lot of reflection and nostalgia, and then I've started to think about, as a leader, what do I need to leave behind? I
Yeah.
mean, that things are not forever.
Exactly.
And what can I do to leave behind, to leave New AP better than
Mhm.
I started it, and what, how can I empower other people to lead and rise up? Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good way to think about it. And you definitely don't look 50.
Thank you.
Yeah, really. But what are the wisdoms that you have learned throughout those years? Like one wisdom that you can share with us. Yeah.
One thing I've been telling my daughter lately is that it's really important to spend as little time as possible reflecting on what gifts you don't have. My daughter's at that age where she's always thinking about her looks and her friends and her, like, how she looks and what she has and what her friends have, and what she wants to look like, and I think young women put so much pressure on themselves.
Yeah.
And I've just been thinking, you just waste so much time focusing on the things that you don't have or the gifts you don't have, and it seems like time wasted. Like, you work with what you've got and celebrate it. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with that, and I think this is one of the advices I could use more when, like, if I heard it, like, if I not heard it, but I understood and absorbed it in an early age, because, as you said, we spend so much time just thinking of what we don't have, of things that we wish that we have, and we forget to celebrate what we really have, and waste a lot of time not connecting with the right people. Because you're absent-minded, thinking of so many things.
Yeah.
So that's a good advice. Thank you. Who was your best teacher, your favorite teacher?
My favorite teacher?
Yeah.
I had a lot of teachers. 13 different schools. But a couple really stand out. When I was in second grade, I had a teacher named Miss Hagan, who was just, the school I went to in second grade, it was a new school because, I moved on. And it was weird. It was like a weird school, and I felt very uneasy. And she was so kind, just so kind that she just made it a lot easier for me. And then my theater teacher, Miss Finger, she was wonderful in high school. She just, like, theater was the thing that helped me get through high school. It was the thing I loved. So and then maybe I had a lot of great teachers, but I guess the other one I would mention is Mr. Blackwood. He was our English teacher, and he was made me passionate about reading and writing. So
yeah, I was very intentional about this question for two reasons. First, like, when you change those schools through time, and when there is one person or two people that are really, like, in your mind and they're still here, that means they had a very big impact. And because I just believe in the impact that teachers have on people. And you just reminded me of my Quran teacher, Miss Asma, and my English teacher, Miss Paedia. They have been moms before being teachers, and that has just impacted me so much. And that's why I always say that I believe, like, being a teacher is, like being a messenger from, like, similar to being a messenger from God, because you have a message, and it's a really big and great and very important message, and you're shaping the future of the world by teaching kids either good things or bad things through your behavior. It's not necessarily what you tell them, but through how you deal with them. And and they're just impacting our life in so many ways. And thanks for sharing that. Yeah.
I always will uplift my teachers.
Yeah.
Because I, like you, I believe teachers
Mm-hmm.
Are, you know, they change your, they change your life. They make you think. They open the world. They're so important.
So yeah, our next question, as I said, very relevant to what we're talking about: isolation and being locked in somewhere.
Okay.
But this situation is a little different. It's not complete silence, but you're locked in. Imagine yourself locked in with someone that you don't necessarily like to be around them, and that because they hurt you some to some level, you didn't get the time to talk to them about it. You didn't get a time to just to express how you feel and to handle it with them. You're stuck there for a week, and you don't have your phone. You don't have nothing, like no notebook, no tablet, no computer. You have that person, and you have a survival things like food, water, and you have to share them with that person. So, how would you deal with that situation?
Oh wow, it's a really difficult situation. So I'm with somebody that's hurt me, and I have feelings about that.
Yeah.
And I'm trapped in a room with them for a week with nothing but like the basics of life. Okay. How would I deal with that? You know, like I'm kind of torn because on the one hand, you could like try to hash it out, you know, but and talk through it and deal with it. But then you would be still stuck there for a week. So if it went wrong, you would be killed. Yeah, that's true. Or you just could be like even more awful. So
it depends, right?
It depends. Like, I mean, if I, now I have the privilege of just being able to plan it out because it's not a real situation. And so I would hope that I would just kind of try to connect and relate to this person in some way, find something common we could do or talk about, games or something for the first part of the week, and then maybe get into it later.
So using the time, like
using the time, like, not like starting off pouring all of our, our feelings out on the table, but building rapport, trying to have, because this is the only person you have, so
yes,
trying to pass the time in a positive way, and then maybe, maybe if you establish that rapport, you then can talk about the thing that's really upset you.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. And that's what I say. I probably do something totally different when she locked me in the room.
Yeah, when I was thinking of this question, I was like, oh my god, this is so mean question. Like,
really mean. I don't know why you do it like this. This is a mean question.
I'm sorry, but I thought about it because sometimes there are many people or like certain people that has done something to us in life and we didn't get time to reflect, to speak about it, or they weren't welcoming, like any reason, that we just didn't get the time to speak about it or the chance to speak about it. So I was thinking of, it shouldn't be like the typical situation of being locked for a week, but what if there is a chance for us to speak to those people about how we feel and what they did, and just using it as a way of clear up, tolerate for ourselves, to feel better for ourselves, just to let things go, maybe. Because it depends. Sometimes those people, like, they can hurt you, but they still don't see that they did that. And if you spoke about it, as you said, you might be killed. They can be mad or pissed off that you spoke about it. So it just depends. But it was a moment for reflection more than torturing. I want us to speak a little bit about motherhood and just a womanhood overall. I know one of your favorite people is your grandma, and you love her, and she, you said she inspired you. So Do you want to tell us a little bit about her?
My grandmother grew up, she was the oldest of 7 kids, and she lived in Swainsboro, Georgia. She was a sharecropper. She picked cotton. She lived through the Great Depression, so she experienced hunger. They were very poor. Um, she had to drop out of school in the 8th grade. And when she was 17, she just decided that she wanted a different life. And so she left home and went to Savannah, and she worked as a waitress. And then she got a job during World War II driving a forklift.
Wow.
Yeah. She was a tough woman. And from picking cotton when she was young, she had a big muscle, like my husband's. Like, she had a big muscle.
Yeah.
And she just was like a tough lady. She enjoyed life. She was funny. My grandfather was in the Air Force. She went everywhere he went. She went to Alaska. She went to Spain. She lived on the border in Texas. She traveled everywhere. She raised 4 kids, and she was just funny and tough, but at the same time really loving. She was always feeding people. I think this is a thing that you see globally. Like, when somebody's gone hungry, they always want to feed everyone.
That's true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And she was like that, because she used to tell us she would eat just like a biscuit for the whole day, and that was all she had.
Yeah.
And so she was constantly feeding us, and she was just like a really strong lady, but also, like, she could fight. Like, she was tough. And she didn't take anything from anyone. And I just, I really admired my mom too, but they were like opposites in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
And my grandmother just, she was just always so cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's beautiful. And how did she impact you?
Well, when my grandmother, as my grandfather was in the military, they had a lot of ideas about service. And my grandmother she did a lot of service to veterans and in the community. And so when I was little, she used to take me to visit men who were living in veteran homes. Like, they were, they had injuries, and they had to live in like an assisted living for the rest of their life.
Yeah.
And we would go and do cakewalks and just play cards with them. And my grandmother taught me how to sit down and like really listen and engage. And I feel like she taught me the concept of service.
Yeah.
And how important that was. And she also used, she dropped out of school when she was 8 to help. When she was 8th grade, to help her mom. She didn't have food. She in the 1940s went through a divorce before she married my grandfather. And she divorced her husband because he would take her paycheck.
Okay.
And she said, it's my money. I want to have control of my money. So it was just kind of, she taught me how to look after myself, how to be strong in what I believed, how to serve my community, but not sacrifice who I am. Yeah.
Oh, that's amazing. There are so many relevant things with my mom.
Oh, yeah.
Because, my mom is, she's the inspiration of this podcast, and she's the inspiration of me in my life. And I took her journey of resilience and being, a giving person, like raising us as like 6 kids with under poverty living, and making life out of that, being intentional about our education, being tough but kind-hearted, and that's a very like rare thing, like when you have those 2 things together, and you're just someone who's really very, very extraordinary. And I took a lot of my wisdom, a lot of things that I learned in my life from her. I can relate to many things that you said about your grandma.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there is something that's shared between all those kind of women. They always love to feed people. I don't know why. They love to feed people.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'm honored to hear about her, and I'm sure wherever she's now, she's proud of the person you became because you learned a lot of things from her.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so beside her, who else, other woman, like who's another woman that impacted your life?
I was so lucky because I grew up with a granny and 3 moms.
Yeah.
So my mom had 2 sisters, and they were a constant in my life, along with my mom. My mom was the kind and sweet person that, like, she was the mom that all the kids in trouble came to. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, we were the house where, you know, every kid who didn't have dinner or was in a fight with their parents or, you know, whatever.
Yeah.
My mom took in all the strays.
Yeah.
And we always had somebody living with us, and she was just that kind of a person. And then I had an aunt who was glamorous and beautiful, and she was from the big city, and she just, you know, and I had another aunt who was smart. She was the one who finished college, and she married an engineer, and so it was like,
combination.
It's like a combination of 4 women who were like the perfect person to give you everything you needed.
Yeah,
and I just feel that was the biggest blessing in my life. I mean, I had wonderful men in my life too, you know, but those 4 women were just like, and they were like fierce family women, you know. I think that's such a, I think those fierce family women, they don't get a lot, like, there's not a lot of stories written about them. They don't get they don't get history books written about them, but they make things happen.
Exactly.
They are the center of the universe. You know, they're the ones who hold you together.
Exactly. Yeah, I totally agree. And as you said, the history is really isn't writing about those women, and they have just shaped the lives of millions of people, and they need to be recognized. And you know, you talking about them today is like a way of recognizing them. So, and having this podcast is about, you know, just celebrating their lives, their power, their kindness, their resilience, and share that with other people to give a hope and light and inspiration. So yeah, that's amazing, and thanks for sharing that. Going back to motherhood, I remember at the office one day we were talking when I was pregnant. You were talking about your experience of pregnancy, and that you were working when you were like you were 18 months, and it was like almost 8 months. I mean, 8 months.
Felt like 18 months.
Yeah, right. So how were you able, like being Paedias, all the responsibilities that you have, how were you able to balance between motherhood and being, you know, someone who leads teams, leads communities? How did you balance that life?
You know, I don't really know, because before New American Pathways, there was RISA, was our the previous organization, and I got promoted to executive director in September.
Yeah.
And I was on my way to a board meeting in October, and I threw up in a bag, and I was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe this. I knew the minute. So I started the new job pregnant.
No.
And I was so sick and exhausted the entire time, and it had been the recession. My husband had lost his job. The organization was in trouble. And it was so much that I don't remember most of it. And I think in some ways that's how I got through it, is that I was so busy that I didn't have time to think about how awful it was. So it just happened. I just did it. You know, I remember that I would work all day and then come home, and several times my husband pulled me out of the car because I'd fallen asleep in the car. relate to that. And he felt so awful because you know it was hard to find a job, and so and then he in no way had he at all been prepared that he would be the one at home taking care of a baby.
Yeah.
Ever.
Yeah.
And I remember he said to me once, he was like, they don't teach us men how to do this. And I said, honey, do you really think they have a class for us? They don't. We don't know what we're doing either, It's
natural.
But but he was amazing. So kudos to him. He really he was brave too. But it's just that's such a crazy whirlwind of things happened all at once.
I know.
But my daughter's my life. I adore her, and I really tried to make sure that New AP was a family-friendly organization.
Yeah.
And I hope everybody benefits from that, but I certainly benefit from that.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I saw an interview with the actress Susan Sarandon. I don't know if you know who she is, but somebody asked her the question they always ask women. I don't know why they ask men these questions, but they always ask women is, how do you do it all? How do you, and she said, well, I'm 60 years old. I've done it all, but I didn't do it all at once.
Yeah.
And I thought, that's it. Like sometimes, work is going great, but your house is a disaster. And sometimes you feel great about what's going on with your kid, but you forgot 3 things from work. And it's just, you balance is not, you're never in balance. Balance is being unbalanced in different ways over time.
That's true.
Yeah,
actually, we had that conversation with my husband like 2 days ago, and he's like very structure-oriented person, and like I have a schedule, I have to follow my schedule. And now, I was like that before I became a mom, but after I became a mom, like there is no way to keep your
kids not on a schedule.
They are not, and you have to be there like when they're fuzzy, when like they just need mommy a moment, or they're not feeling well, and the day is just unpredictable, and you have to just be flexible with yourself, be flexible with them, and adjust your day based on how things work. And that, I think that's something women have in general. And men, they don't have it in nature, but also they weren't told, or they didn't go through a certain lifestyle that prepared them for this. So for your husband to learn how to do that, it was a brave of him and very supportive of him, actually.
No, he's a brave and wonderful man. Absolutely.
Well, shout out to him from here.
Shout out to Eric.
Yes.
A wonderful husband.
Thanks for being an amazing husband and supportive. And it takes a lot actually to keep being a successful woman and keep your family together. It takes a lot of work from the other partner as well. That tells a lot about your family. I had a question that was stuck in my mind about motherhood as well, because for me, like, it's a similar situation. I don't leave my daughter with a stranger when I go to work. I leave her with my mom, who is really like super duper like loving and supporting, and I really appreciate her for doing that, because she already did her part with me and my siblings, but she's still there to help. So, but when I go to work or anywhere, there is that punch in my heart, like that, especially when she was younger, and like this feeling never gets old. Like you feel like you're living a piece of your heart at home. And I thought maybe because she was young, but now she's 18 months, but I still feel the same feeling. And I don't know if it's only me, but I wanted to ask you about that as well. Like, how did you deal with that? Like every day you go out, you feel that feeling.
When she started going to school, that felt a little bit better, because I was like, she's going to work too. We're both going to work.
I like that.
Yeah. But my husband said this Christmas, he said, only 4 more Christmases until college. And I just was like, why would you say that? And now that I hear that in my head constantly. Only 4 more Christmases till college. I'm just, no, time goes so fast. And so I'm starting to think about, how do I put my baby in a different, like living in a different place. That is something I can't wrap my head around. So I think you go from that, I don't want to be apart at all feeling, to they start building a life and it's fun to see and you want them to experience friends and have things. But then suddenly one day you're like, wait, they're
When did that
they're going to
happen?
leave. And that's,
Yeah.
that's,
So
yeah, I'm not ready to think about that yet.
Wow. So this feeling never gets old. Like I have to deal with this feeling every time. Like she's not there home. That's a lot. That's too much for moms to deal.
I think it's a little easier.
Yeah. I hope so. I hope so. Yeah. That was one of the questions that I really was wondering all the time. Like I asked my mom about it, and she was saying similar things, and also because at some point she used to take us to the work, like the three of us.
Uh-huh.
My older sister, my younger brother, like the three of us, we used to be a street vendor. She sells tea and coffee and something called zalabia. It's a Sudanese donut. So she sells that, and we go, like all of us, we go together with her. That I think that helped her a little bit, because we were under her eyes. That still, she was also feeling guilty because she's taking us to work. So motherhood is just too much pain and too much love. I think the too much love is the cause of all that pain, I guess, right?
My mom used to take us to, she worked the night shift. She was a computer operator, which is not a thing anymore, but she used to, when computers took up a whole room, my mom would take the big, she would load the big tape up on the system and monitor the systems to make sure they were running overnight and there were no problems. And so she used to set up like little, if my dad had to do something or my dad had to work out of town, she would set up sleeping bags for my brother and I and bring us to work with her. Yeah. I've brought Rita to work before, and she likes coming a lot. Yeah.
Rita loves going. She's very people person. Now she's changing a little bit.
She's going through that shy stranger caution phase. She looks at you first.
And she gives you some time. She used to be like, just once she sees people, she just runs to them. But now she's like, no, not that she don't talk to me. And she stays like couple hours to couple days based on how long you're staying. And I remember when my sister came, like she was like, don't talk to me. And she came with her kids, her 3 kids. And she told her, you need to deal with this because we're going to be in your face for 3 weeks. You don't have it anyway. But yeah, it's very interesting how they change though, because she wasn't like that at all.
Wait till they're 13.
Right. That's a crazy time.
That's when they're embarrassed by you and
Wow. Amazing. Motherhood is very
an adventure.
Rich. Yeah, exactly. It is.
Yeah.
Well, it's I really am enjoying this talk, and we can talk till I don't know when, but I enjoyed talking to you, and it was very nice to learn about you, about your family, about things that you have done in your life. And
well, I mean, I feel first of all honored because I know I'm your first guest, and I'm honored to be your first guest, and I'm excited about this project for you. You know, I think it's going to be amazing, and I'm really grateful that you let me be a part of it.
Yeah, sure.
I feel good. It's good to talk to someone who's such an interesting person and smart. You know, like you said, I could talk to you all day. So I feel great.
Yeah, I feel that way too, and I'm really honored. I am honored because, as I told you earlier when you accepted to be in the podcast, that I appreciate everyone who wanted to be part of this. Now I don't have anything outside there. This is the first thing, and people just believed in the mission. They wanted to help me, believed on me. Whatever the reason, I appreciate that, and it was an honor to talk to you, to be here and share these moments, have these deep conversations, and we'll see how our talk goes. Yeah. Thank you.
Well, great. All right.
Thank you so much.